Hello everyone, Ed Puzzle number 3, class number 6, and let's do a little bit of vocabulary. First word is koshi or kushia, which means difficulty or problem. Next word is teirutz, which means an answer or resolution. In modern Hebrew, it's an excuse. Next word is shakla vataria, which means give and take, ping and pong, a kind of debate or something like that. And last word of the day is deoraita, which means from the Torah. Okay, so we started this one in class. So we've got Rav Kruz Padaya saying there is only a 3-month period in someone's life in which they can be tried and declared chayav for being a ben soreh moreh. And before we start, what is the ping going to try to do, and what is the pong side going to try to do, and what is the ping side going to try to do? I find that helpful in kind of going through our arguments. All right, so the Pong side is going to say, no, it's not a 3-month period. It's longer. I guess they could also say shorter, but something to disagree with Rav Kruz Padaya. And then the Ping side is going to try to justify Rav Kruz Padaya. Okay, so this statement from Rav Kruz Padaya should bother you because we actually learned something in our Mishnah that contradicts that. What is that statement in the Mishnah? You could write it in Hebrew or English, whatever. And there it is right there. From the moment that there comes 2 pubic hairs until the beard surrounds the genitals. Now, why is that a contradiction of Rav Kruz Padaya? Right? And now we're going to go back to the ping side to try to resolve the apparent contradiction. We want to really show that Rav Kruz Padaya isn't just talking. He is a rabbi. He knows his Mishnah well. He wouldn't say something that in some way contradicted the Mishnah. So what is it? How can it be that Rav Kruz Padaya can be right, but the Mishnah can also be right? So give me some kind of idea of how that might be. And one hint is, one idea I would say is that actually each of them are not even talking about the same thing. Each of them are trying to solve this problem in a different way. And the problem being, when is someone a ben soreh or moreh? And Rav Kruz Padaya is saying this is when, and the Mishnah is saying no, this is how I know, right? So what is the difference between the two of them? Sorry, I'm in a room that doesn't have a lot of light here. And one could say Rav Kruz Padaya is saying, give me dates. I want a time period that I'm calling the bet, like you're a katan, you're an ish, and then this period called ben soreh umoreh, potential time. Then Rav Kruz, the Mishnah is saying, no. I want an outward appearance. I don't want a date, a time in the books. I want kind of an outward appearance to show me. So that could be. We could say, hey, they're actually not even talking about the same thing. They're talking about two different things. So they're talking about two different things. So in some way, they are allowed to contradict each other. Okay. But let's see what they're going to say here. So here's what actually the ping side says. There's no contradiction at all. Actually, both are correct, and it's a whatever comes first deal. Either full pubic hair makes you no longer eligible for being a ben soreh or moreh, or 3 months from the time that you have 2 pubic hairs, even if you're not fully kind of pubicized. So really what Rav Kruz Padaya is saying is, if 2 hairs are the onset of puberty, there's a moment where you've reached enough of puberty, even if maybe we know today there are other signs of puberty as well, but you reach enough of puberty that you're actually outside of the limits of being a ben soreh umoreh. And by the way, it may be that actually Rav Kruz Padaya knows from his own experience that the moment he had 2 pubic hairs till a fully fully pubicized was actually 3 months, even though some of the other signs like a beard, like hair under your arm, and growth spurt and things like that, and acne, that was actually a much longer kind of time period. All right, good. So let's move on. And what the Talmud does here, by the way, is an important characteristic of Talmud in general, right? And that is this idea that a person who has a statement to say about the Mishnah can't in some way be contradictory. Like, and it requires us to in some way go back to the Mishnah and say, how did he learn that? How did he know that? And that's the job, in a sense, of the Talmud, trying to kind of resolve the apparent contradictions between Torah and Mishnah, or Torah and the way things are done, or rabbis and Mishnah as well. So yeah, all right. So okay. So, and actually, this might actually be a little bit of a better way to kind of write our chart, because at the end, well, why is this probably a better way? Showing what happens at the end. Exactly, because it's really both ping and pong, like both are right. You're right, both are right. And that's kind of a Jewish way. You're right, oh you're right, oh you're both right. Okay. Good. Now we're gonna go to Mishnah number 2, and this is a great, so this is our second Mishnah. We're back from the Talmud into the Mishnah. So here we go. And I'll just read it through with you with a little, we have it, a little guy over. Okay. Me'ematai chayav. At what point does a person become chayav for being a ben sorer umoreh? And we have some terms you need to know here. Just the term basar, which means meat, yayin, which means wine. Those are our words that we need to know for this. So, at what point does a person become chayav for being ben sorer umoreh? From the moment, and that's kind of the question. Here's our answer. From the moment that he eats a tartemar of basar and drinks a half a cheekful of yain, half a cheekful. So log is a sign for chetzi log of Italian wine. That's when he becomes chayav for being a ben sorer umoreh. Um, Rav Yossi says, no, it's the moment in time that he eats 2 tartemar. And obviously, tartemar is a unit of weight, a weight of meat. So it's probably not a steak that looks like this, but maybe a steak that looks like this. So Rabbi Yossi says, no, it's from the moment he eats 2 tartemar of basar and drinks 1 cheekful of Italian wine. That's when he becomes chayav for being ben sorer umoreh. But if he ate this amount with a group that was having a feast in celebration of something good, like which we're calling a mitzvah group, chavurat mitzvah, he doesn't become a ben sorer umoreh if he does this eating. And if he ate this amount with a group that was celebrating the new moon's arrival, he doesn't become a ben sorer umoreh. But if he ate this amount of unkosher food, he doesn't become a ben sorer umoreh. But if he ate this amount of food because he was doing a mitzvah, or if he ate this amount of food because he was doing a sin, he doesn't become a ben sorer umoreh. But if he ate this amount of food, but the food was not basar, meat, but if he doesn't become a ben sorer umoreh. But if he drank this amount of drink and the drink wasn't yain or wine, he doesn't become a ben sorer umoreh. But he doesn't become, and then this is our ending. He doesn't become a chayav for being a ben sorer umoreh until he eats this amount of basar and drinks this amount of yain. Shinamar, as it says in the Torah, a drunkard and a glutton. So, just one question right away is this one right here. How did we actually get this idea of basar, of actually drinking equals yain, basar of eating equals not just any kind of eating, but eating meat. So we're right now narrowing kind of what eating and drinking means. Why meat? Why wine? And I think actually wine is probably an easier kind of question to think about. Why is the wine kind of the signification of stubborn and rebellion? Why is meat the signification of stubborn and rebellion? So give me your best guesses over there, and let's go to kind of some of these questions now. Here we go. So the first Mishnah that we talked about, right, said a ben sorer umoreh. When does a person become a ben sorer umoreh? Spoke about the time period in someone's life that someone could become a chayav for being a ben sorer umoreh. But what is this Mishnah talking about? It's not talking about time period. It's talking about something else. Oh, this shouldn't be quite yet. Well, let's go to, according to row 2, we learn when someone is chayav, right? But when is that same person patur? Okay? So we learn when they're chayav, but make an inference from this of when we would consider that person to be patur. And you may have more than one answer there. Question number 3. Does Rabbi Yossi make it harder or easier to become chayav for being a ben sorer umareh? And tell me why. We're going to see actually from Rabbi Yossi. We're going to hear from Rabbi Yossi in our Mishnah again. And for some reason, I think it may kind of give us a sense of his family life and maybe a child that he has at home. Okay, I want to go to this idea of, it says, it gives an amount that considers someone to be obligated for being a chayav, for being a ben surah mareh, and it says a tarte mar of basar, and I'll get you the exact measurements of that next time, and half of a cheekful of Italian wine. And a bunch of commentators kind of question, what does Italian wine mean? And here are a couple of different ideas. So we've got Yayin HaItalki, Otsar Dinim Minhagim says that's wine that is old and good. Kahati says the word Italki is actually written on the wine bottle, and this is wine that's good, and people try to find it everywhere they go. And if they find it, they'll definitely drink it. And it's also addictive. And then we have a third one is actually the word Italki is an adjective not for the word yayin, wine, but it's an adjective describing the log, the cheekful. So it's talking about a half of a cheekful of an average Italian person. So here's a question: do you think an Italian person has a larger cheek or a smaller cheek? I have no idea. And then we have the last one is by Steinsaltz. This wine is sharper and more effective than other wines. And so here I have a question about that. Uh, which answer, not which one do you think is more correct, but which answer makes it harder for someone to become chayav for being a ben surah mareh of these four, and which answer actually makes it easier for someone to be chayav or guilty for being a ben surah mareh? Those are my two questions about yain tzaki. Good. So we answered a couple questions already over here. 1, 2, and okay. And what I ask here is about the general principles. Question number 4: the general principles that the Mishnah is trying to get across in row 4 and row 5. He ate this amount of meat and wine with a group that was having a feast in celebration of some positive Jewish thing. So, for instance, a circumcision, a wedding, a bar bat mitzvah. Or he ate this amount or drunk this amount with a group that was celebrating the new moon's arrival. Okay, so it used to be that groups would get together and actually would say, "Oh, now today is the new moon." We announced it, and then we had a little festival about it, and then people kind of move on with their life. So, what is this? What is general principle trying to get across in rows 4 and 5? Great. Let's go to this one. This is so weird. If eating non-kosher food is a Jewish no-no, then what is line 6 here to teach us? Shouldn't this be definitely a case of being chayav for being a ben surah mareh? Do you understand this? Like, what's your explanation? Why would someone, if they ate this amount of not just food but unkosher food, why wouldn't they be a ben surah mareh? It just seems obvious. Why is the Mishnah saying actually no? That person is not. Okay. Um, and I asked this question a little bit, but why do you think that meat is the way the Mishnah believes that someone overeats? Aren't there other ways? Should this rule change for today? Like, what would you say is the kind of basar of our time? Like, would that be Chick-fil-A or kosher Chick-fil-A, right? Um, and why do you think wine is the way the Mishnah believes that you can become a drunkard? Aren't there other ways? After all, the rabbis did make and drink beer. Why wine? Okay. And then this is just an interesting line right here, right? He doesn't become chayav for being a ben surah mareh until A, he eats that amount of basar and drinks that amount of yayin. And so the question is, what are the odds when someone eats meat, they're also drinking wine? Like, let's say in 100 times when you're eating meat, are you also drinking wine? And let's just ask the other way around. 100 times when you're drinking wine, are you also eating meat? right? Oh, I asked that question again. And again, does the ruling in this row number 9, make it harder or easier to become chayav for being a ben Soreh or Moreh? And of course, that word shene'emar means that actually all of this idea was from the Torah itself. So find me where those words are, and maybe give me the words before and after, so I know that you found it in this in the Torah piece right there. Great. All right. So let's move on. We're going to explore one piece of Talmud as it relates to this second Mishnah. So here we go. I'm just trying to turn on a light in here. Great. Okay, and for this Mishnah, you are going to need to know. For this piece of Talmud, you're going to need to know the words mitzvah and avera. So a mitzvah is obviously something that is commanded, right? We say often we use we make a blessing that says Asher Kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, that you God, make us holy through your commandments, a mitzvah, right? We have 613 mitzvot, a mitzvah. And the opposite of that, which we don't often talk about, are averot or an avera. So a sin is an avera. There's a great song that goes, mitzvah goreret mitzvah, avera goreret avera, right? A mitzvah follows another mitzvah. So a mitzvah causes another mitzvah to happen. A sin or a non-mitzvah causes another, and I actually believe that's kind of true. Okay, so okay, read and circle a part of our Mishnah that should raise a problem. I'm not going to actually have you do that. I'm going to show you the part of the mitzvah which I'm having a problem with right here. Okay, but if he ate the small amount of food because he was doing a mitzvah, or if he ate a small amount of food because he was committing a sin, he is not considered a ben sorer umoreh. Like what does that mean? Can you try to explain that for me, please? And let's go to our ping and pong here. So we have it's a very short one, but our ping says, from the last piece of Mishnah, we learned that someone doing a mitzvah or part of a mitzvah group cannot become a ben sorer umoreh. It's almost as if the act of doing a mitzvah protects someone from becoming a ben sorer umoreh. But why would the Mishnah tell us that someone doing an avera, someone doing a sin, would also make someone patur from becoming a ben surah moreh? How would doing an avera protect you so that you do not become a ben surah moreh? Isn't the person who does an avera the very definition of someone who should become a ben sorer umoreh? All right, so now we've got the pong side. And so first of all, what is the pong going to try to show us? They're going to try to show us what? Okay, the Pong side is going to try to show us a way that someone who does an Avera still cannot become a Ben Sorer Umoreh. Okay, this is hard, but here's how they do it. So the Pong side is going to do this by looking at the Torah verses that speak about a Ben Sorer Umoreh. Let's look at it now and see if we can figure it out. Okay, so here we go. Here's the original verses, and we're trying to use what the Torah speaks about a Ben Sorer Umoreh, and we're trying to find words that could support the Pong side, that someone who actually does an Avera, does a sin, cannot become a Ben Sorer U Moreh. Now, my one hint for you is that a mitzvah is not a commandment that I, Rabbi Light, am giving you, right? Who is giving you that command? Mm-hmm. Good. So that should help you out. And with that hint, can you figure out what the problem is? All right, we're going to get a little closer. Let's look at hint number 1 is he does not listen to us. He meaning the Ben Sorrer Moreh, right? The person who's being brought to trial. So have you figured it out? Give us your answer if you know what the Gemara is going to do, the Talmud is going to do. Sorry. Okay. Hint number 2 is us. Who is the us? Define the us. Okay. And if you define the us appropriately, who is included in the us and who is not included in the us, right? So who is included in the us, and who is the commander of mitzvot, and the setter of avirot, right? Are they the us, or is there someone else? Okay, so here we go. And this is exactly what the Torah says. The Torah verses that speak about the Ben Serer Moreh tell us that parents bring this person to the judge of our towns and say, this boy doesn't listen to our voice. Who is the our in the words our voice? The our is the mom and the dad. Who is not part of the our? God is not part of the our. Doing a mitzvah is about following God's voice. Doing an avera is about not following God's voice. But becoming a Ben Serer Moreh is not following the voice of a parent. So it doesn't have anything to do with what God does or doesn't want from us. But is that true? Give me your idea about that. Do we believe what the Pong is saying? And I just want to show you something that's really beautiful in the Torah, in the Ten Commandments itself, right? The honor, the commandment to kaved revicha v'yemecha, honor your mom or your dad, comes kind of as number 5, right? The exact middle between commandments between God and us, and commandments between people and people. So mom and dad stand right in the middle of that. And the famous Jewish philosopher Philo asks, why is that? And Philo answers, because actually, moms and dads are the pivot between God and us. That mom and dad actually stand kind of on that brink. They're kind of a little bit godlike, a little bit us-like in a way, at least when we are certainly younger. And so it's a real question of, right, the rabbis here are using the words the voice, our voice, meaning it's our voice he's not listening to, but it's God. But if he doesn't listen to God's voice, that's another problem altogether. But it's not our problem specifically dealing with Ben Sura Moreh. But it does make us question that there must be a close connection between honoring your parents and honoring God. Like, it's pretty hard for me to believe that someone could honor God but not honor your parents, or could honor your parents and not, well, maybe. Okay. Good. Let's go to Mishnah number 3. And the way we're going to look at Mishnah number 3 is, first of all, let's just look at a few new words here. We've got mitzvah and avera, which we just had. And just for this Mishnah, we need the words ganav, which means to steal. Like a ganif is a like a Yiddish word for someone who is a robber. Like, you're a ganif. You took my lunch today. Like, stop being such a ganif. Stop stealing all of my good stuff, right? All of my Trader Joe sour gummies, right? Stop that. Stop being a ganif. Um, and maybe I'll bring some of those to class and we can practice being ganifs. Okay. And then I can say it. Stop being a ganif. Okay. And then the other word is reshut. Reshut is like a space. So like reshut hayachid is like personal space. Reshut harabim is like public space. But reshut is like place, a space that I have. Okay. And they're actually okay. Okay. So before we start our Mishnah, before we even start looking at the Mishnah today, I want to kind of look at this kind of scenario, because this is going to kind of help us understand something here. Before we look we have a couple questions to answer before reading Mishnah number 3. The word zolel v'soveh, found in the Torah, can be translated as eating a lot and drinking a lot, right? We just translated them before as glutton and drunkard. Of the 4 different kinds of stealing and eating scenarios below, right, here they are, there is one scenario that is most likely or most probable to happen. Which scenario is the most likely or most probable to occur? Be ready to justify your choice. Is it scenario 1, 2, 3, or 4? All right, so pick one, and as we move on. Okay. Now let's read the Mishnah itself. Here we go. If he ganav from his father and ate in the reshut of his father, he doesn't become a ben Surah Moreh. If he ganav from others and ate in the reshut of others, he doesn't become a ben Surah Moreh. If he ganav from others and ate in the reshut of his father, he doesn't become a ben Surah Moreh. If he only becomes a ben Surah Moreh if he ganavs from his father and ate in the reshut of others. Rabbi Yossi, son of Rabbi Yehuda, says he only becomes a ben Surah Moreh if he ganavs from his father and his mother and ate in the reshut of others. All right, so did you get it right? All right, let's just, that's our Mishnah, and we're going to come back to it in a minute. But let's see what we're talking about here. Okay, so, first of all, so what is the situation in which he does become a Ben Surah Moreh? Just make sure you write that down for me. Okay. So moving right to the Talmud piece before we actually ask our questions about Mishnah number 3. Okay. It says, after we read our previous 2 Mishnayot, there were a series of questions that were asked you. For this Mishnah, we're going to move right to the Talmud piece. Why? Because instead of offering a Shak Levataria, the Talmud in this case is actually going to try to explain what the Mishnah is saying. So here we go. So, the Talmud believes that a person is more likely to become a Ben Surah Moreh when that person is more likely to eat a lot and drink a lot. Of the 4 cases presented in our Mishnah, the Talmud uses 2 criteria for helping figure out which of the 4 cases is most likely to create a kid who will eat a lot and drink a lot. What do you think those criteria must be? Okay. Here they are. Here are the 2 criteria. Access to food and drink that can be stolen, and the fear factor of getting caught while eating and drinking stolen goods. Access to food and drink that can be stolen, and the fear factor of getting caught. So let's just look at our different scenarios for a second. Okay? And so we've seen this chart before. It shows all 4 scenarios of our Mishnah. Let's now rate each scenario using the criteria of A, access of goods to be stolen. So do you know where to find the goods to steal? And B, fear of getting caught while eating the stolen goods. So you can use the arrows kind of up or down. And I'll actually say, so we'll kind of go through like, you'll see it on your Edpuzzle, like dad's house, access up or access down. Uh, um, and buying from right. So okay, we'll go through it like this. Okay, stealing money from dad's house, is that high access or low access? Buying food, meat, and drink wine with the money, and eating and drinking the items bought in your dad's house, is the fear factor high or fear factor low? Okay, and basically okay, next one. Stealing money from your dad's house, access high, access low. And using that money to buy food or wine and eating that stuff in your friend's house, fear factor high, fear factor low. Okay, stealing money from a friend's house, access high, access low. Eating in your dad's house, fear factor high, fear factor low. Stealing money from your friend's house, access low, access high. Buying food and eating it in your friend's house, fear factor low, fear factor high. Okay, so you should have answered all those questions. And now let's kind of see what our answers are here. We've got stealing money from a dad's house is access is high, you know where stuff is, but fear factor is also high. Stealing money from dad's house, access high. Eating in your friend's house, fear factor is low. Friend's house, well, you don't know where your friend's parents keep their money. And dad's house, fear factor is high. Friend's house, access is still low. But eating at a friend's house, fear factor is low. So our answer to why what is in a sense the easiest way for someone to steal and eat, for someone to become a stealer of money and a eater of food bought with that money. It's when access is high and fear factor is low. And which is that? Which is okay, and that's scenario number two. So let's listen to this from the Talmud as Rab Schwartzberger explains this Talmud piece. Starting at 254. Let's go. Nope. All right, I think we're going to do this. We're going to end up doing this part in class. And, oh, let's see if we got it. Okay. So I just want to, before I end for the day, so I just want to make sure that we understand what's going on here. Is that um, the concern of our Mishnah is, what is the case where someone's activity is going to be a prevalent, a continual, a habitual activity? Oh, that's a case of eating that does not happen that often. I mean, that's a case of eating that happens very, very often. So if I can show you cases of stealing and eating with that money that don't happen that often, well, I don't really have to worry about that because that's never going to cause someone to kind of become habitualized or into kind of this pattern that's destructive and negative. But if I can show you a case that's really easy to happen, then all of a sudden, that's a case I need to worry about. So the defining characteristic of someone I need to worry about is someone who kind of takes advantage of a case like that and is involved in a case like that, because that's the case that's going to continue. That's the case I need to worry about. That's the person who's going to really become, over time, if they're not already, a Ben Surer or Moreh. That's a person who I need to label as Ben Surer or Moreh. So, our final question of the day is then, tell me the person who is more likely in the stealing and eating scenario to do that most often. When you're stealing from whom and you're eating with money, with food and drink bought with that money, where? And the second question is why. See you in class, everyone.